welcome back to the shed. I wasn't familiar with Barrington J Baley, but after a bit of reading, I soon learned that him and Michael Moorcock were friends of sorts, and they collaborated on multiple projects together. And Michael Moorcock, who I've learned to really appreciate over the last year, had nothing but really good things to say about Barrington J Baley. So in my very first book haul opening video on this channel, I came across this novel, Solar Robot, and it's been on my TBR for such a long time now, but I finally got around to it, and I'd like to do a bit of a plot overview for you, talk to what I liked, what I didn't like, we'll make some recommendations, and I'll give it a ranking. So I hope you stick around for that. So the novel begins with the awakening of this robot called Jasper Rhodes. He's just come to consciousness, and within seconds he's fully self-aware. And he opens his eyes and he sees his parents, or his makers, right? He refers to them as his parents. He sees his parents, and straight away he knows their full backstory. He knows that they're childless, they really wanted a child. And having foregone all hope, they went along and created this robot in hope that he would become their son. And somehow, and it's not quite explained how, but Jasper Rhodes knows all of this, and he has a really strong theoretical view of the world as well. So he looks into his parents' eyes and he realizes, this is not the life I had imagined for myself. And within seconds, he's out of there, ready to explore the world, leaving his parents behind. Now, his parents sort of look at each other and said, hey, we knew this was a possibility. We could have implanted a will and a desire for him to be with us and take care of us, but we decided to give him free will, and he must go out and make up his own mind as to where he wants to be. So really interesting start to the novel. So Jasper Rhodes goes out there into this very distant future, and it's all very steampunky, which I really enjoyed. So he's out into this world and he comes across this small kingdom. He infiltrates himself into that kingdom and always trying to understand what his consciousness is coming from. So he befriends the king, and there's a whole lot of stuff that happens there, and he finds himself on the flight again. So Jasper Rhodes and Cree depart this small little kingdom after having sort of done what they needed to do there, and head for this place called Tanxian, which was on the other side of the world. And he gets into this much larger kingdom, hoping to get some of the answers that he so desperately craves. But this time around, he's determined to do things a little bit differently to what he did the first time round, and a whole lot of stuff happens again. So the real story begins and ends in Jasper Rhodes himself, trying to come to terms with what his consciousness is. And the novel really asks this really big philosophical question, right? Which is, what truly makes us human? What separates us from machine, from artificial intelligence? Is it the arts? Is it power? Is it kingdoms? What is truly the essence of humanity, and can it be found in an artificial intelligent creature like a robot? So look, I found it to be a really surprising good read, this one. So what did I like? Look, I really enjoy robot novels. I mentioned in the past when reviewing Caves of Steel that I really like those 3 laws of robotics. But what I've really enjoyed in this novel is that there was no mention of 3 laws of robotics. And I guess some of the dangers that you would encounter if those things weren't fundamentally built into these self-aware robots, right? So I really enjoyed the different spin on robotics that Barrington J Baley put forward in this novel. The other thing I really enjoyed is the ageless question asked in this novel. What is consciousness? What makes us truly human? And can artificial intelligent things like robots actually become self-aware and have a consciousness? Because the book sort of puts consciousnness and soul into the same mix, right? And it really asks the questions, you know, is this robot that believes he's self-aware just a poor fakery, which all the roboticians in the novel suggest that, hey, you're just faking it. It's a very good fake. It's a very good programming, but you can't truly be self-aware. And it really asks that question, where do we get our consciousness from? Is there such a thing as a soul? And if it is, and machines could potentially possess something like that, what is the reality of souls and where do they come from? So I really enjoyed that theme, that philosophical theme in this novel. The other thing that I really enjoyed was the world setting, right? I really liked this bleak steampunk vibe that this world had going for it. So I really did enjoy that. There wasn't a whole lot of exploration in the book and of that world, and I'll explain that a little bit later when it comes to some of the dislikes or some of the observations that I made during this novel. But I like the scene. I like that scene, which was really sort of, like I said, a steampunky vibe to it all. The other thing I really enjoyed was the concept of these free robots. So in this future society, there's these robots that all have some fundamental programming that they're bound to, but some of them somehow break away from this, and it was difficult to sort of separate those little ghettos that these robots were forming to some of the atrocities we see on our own planet from time to time. So I did enjoy that. And sometimes this novel just went a little bit deeper than what I was expecting it to be. And the other thing that has sort of got me borderline when it comes to my likes and dislikes, so it's literally sitting on the fence on this one, was Barrington J Baley's writing. Now, it was very, very economic. Sometimes, I mean, the novel spans 20 years, right? And sometimes like 7 years will fly like a click of a fingers, right? And his writing was interesting in that sense, but like even at the beginning of the book, you meet his parents and then all of a sudden he's out of there and he's out on his journey, right? It just happens so quickly at times, very effective, but also very brisk. And sometimes I was sitting on the fence as to, I don't know, I felt like maybe I just wanted to loiter here a little bit longer and find out a little bit more about this particular scene or this particular setting, but sometimes it moved very quickly. I'm not going to overly criticize that because, like I said, I'm sitting on the fence as to how much I enjoyed it, but it has got me interested because I want to hit the other Barrington J Baley novel that I have in my repertoire here that I got in my last book haul video, The Garments of Kanye. So I want to read that and I want to sort of get a feel for his writing to see if that is something that is unique to this novel or just a pattern that he seems to follow. But yeah, I found it really interesting prose, very fast, very economic and very brisk at times. So what didn't I like? Look, there's a couple of scenes in the novel that were very vulgar, and now I'm not going to say that this was misogynist in any way. Like, I think it was done on purpose. I think they were trying to portray this world and what it looked like and some of the atrocities that happen in there. But there were several sections in the novel that sort of had me laughing. Like, I don't know, because this robot like is a womanizer in many ways as well, right? And he thinks he doesn't think, he actually becomes this magnet to women, and he sort of does some things to capitalize on that. So I'll leave you to make up your own mind or read the book as to what that may be, which I sort of found, I don't know, it was interesting because I know what the author was trying to get at, right? He was trying to portray this robot just trying to be human in every possible way he could do, right? So I understood why he was doing it. But I don't know, it was just borderline sometimes where I thought, you know, the treatment of women in this novel is a bit weak, you know. It's some would argue misogynist, but I just thought to myself that now I think this is just a story and the way the story had to go to show the humanity that this robot was trying to achieve, and the fault that he had in doing that, right? I don't think they were portraying him in this grand light and this is the way he should be treating people and women in general. I just think it was just portraying his struggles. So I don't know, sitting on the fence again with that one when it comes to my dislike sections. But one of the things I will comment on is that, you know, there are two major challenges that Jasper Otis goes through in the novel, and they were almost cookie cutter scenes, right? You can take what happened in his first encounter, extend that a little bit to the larger, broader kingdom, and there wasn't much separating the two. I would go as far as to say that Jasper Otis himself, in some of the dialogue, basically comes out and says, yeah, life seems to be repeating itself for me. And there was a little bit of that, but look, that's a minor criticism because I didn't mind it, and I thought we learned a little bit more about Jasper Otis and his quest to find the source of this self-awareness that everyone is telling him is just not there, right? So what about recommendations? Look, I really enjoyed this one, and I'd highly recommend it for anyone who's an Isaac Asimov robots fan, who's looking to get a different view on what robots could look like in the far future, right? So I think he's done a really good job of that, just giving us an alternate view about robots that are potentially self-aware and what dangers would they pose to humanity, right? And I think that was very well done in this book. So yes, if you're Isaac Asimov fan who's looking for a little bit of a different flavour to your robots, I'd say have a go at Barrington J Baley's Soul of a Robot, because I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. The other recommendations is obviously to all vintage science fiction fans. I'm not sure if I mentioned at the beginning, but this is a 1974 novel, right? So it's right in that league for me, which was, 50s, 60s, 70s, was for me the golden age of science fiction. I love that period of science fiction. So if you're anything like me, this just reads like one of those classic vintage novels. But I did find there was some pretty interesting, like I said, steampunk type vibes in there that I really enjoyed as well. The other recommendations is obviously those people that like philosophical questions thrown in when it comes to their science fiction, because there's probably no greater philosophical questions than, do we have a soul, and if we do, where does it originate from? And it's taking that science fiction theme and applying that to a robot who believes he's self-aware and is asking himself that same question. So I thought that was really interesting. And if you're anything like me, again, who likes a bit of philosophy thrown in, then I think you'll find something enjoyable in this one as well. So thank you for joining me in the shed. I'm looking forward to hitting the next Barrington J Baley novel. So if you've read this one, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, or whether or not I'm just wasting my time with that one. As always, thank you for spending time with me in the shed, and I'll see you next time in the shed.